Welcome to On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by Review Maxer.
Hello and welcome to On Top of PR. I'm your host, Jason Mudd, and today I'm joined by my colleague at Axia, Ashley Billings. Ashley is an award-winning ABC, CBS, Fox, and NBC affiliate TV news reporter, having worked in California, Jacksonville, and DC. Clients at Axia love her ability to translate PR messages into TV news stories and other news stories. She joined Axia in June of 2018 as a news media consultant. Ashley, welcome to the show. We're glad you're here.
Thank you, Jason. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. We've been talking about this for months, and it's finally happening. So I'm very excited. We're officially recording today on October 7th for a episode to be released in the near future. But Ashley, we want to kind of share your experience and smarts with our audience about how TV newsrooms work, how companies and brands can better tell their story or pitch their story to newsrooms, and how they can improve their media relations to get their story out there and get their company and their experts featured. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds great. Since I've worked in TV and I've worked in PR, I'm excited to show how we collaborate together to get our news on TV.
I love it. I love it. I think you've worked for every major network affiliate, it seems like.
I have. I've crisscrossed the country a few times, and it's been a fun adventure. I'm happy to now just be in one place and doing the other side of TV news, which is the PR side.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you do a great job with it, so I'm thrilled to have you today and share what you know with our audience. So thank you for your hard work and commitment to Axia and our clients, and whoever is tuned in today. I hope they'll take away some key thoughts and learn more about what we do here and improve what they're doing. Either maybe they're pitching their company, or maybe they're just trying to figure out how it all works.
Okay, sounds good.
So Ashley, how did you get into TV news?
Well, I always loved telling stories. So growing up, the only thing actually we were allowed to watch on TV was Sunday night. We could watch TV while we ate dinner on Sunday nights because 60 Minutes was on. And my parents loved watching 60 Minutes, the Today Show every morning. So I grew up really paying attention to the news. And then I loved storytelling. I loved creative writing. So I got into journalism in middle school and kept on going all through college, and always thought if TV news is a possibility, I'll do it. So
nice. That's a great story. I remember my grandfather was like my best buddy when I was a little boy, but the only time I didn't, I felt like we disconnected was if I tried to talk during 60 Minutes, that just wasn't happening. And I couldn't understand because he's my playmate all the other time. But when 60 Minutes was on, I had to be quiet. So, but yeah, and then I grew up I created a neighborhood newsletter for our street. I got connected to journalism in junior high, middle school, and never looked back. So we have kind of a similar experience there.
Yeah, I think it's in your blood. It's something you grow up with, and it's addicting. Once you get into news, you really, it's something that stays with you.
So walk through the average person, which, and probably the average audience for On Top of PR probably has never been inside a TV newsroom before. And maybe for good reason, because they've never worked in journalism, or they haven't been, in studio for an interview or something like that. Kind of explain the daily miracle and the chaos that happens in a TV newsroom for us.
Well, if it's a breaking news day, there's a lot of action, a lot going on. On a typical day, we go in the morning and we have a news editorial meeting where every reporter is going to come in and pitch ideas. So these are ideas that oftentimes we'll get from a PR professional. It's stuff going on in the community, and we'll discuss it, and then we'll leave the newsroom with an assignment or two for the day, and we'll go out and make calls, line up those interviews, write our news story, go live every night. So every day we're producing at least one news story. Inside the newsroom, there's an assignment desk, and that assignment desk is like the engine of the newsroom that keeps it going. They're taking calls, they're paying attention to the police scanners, to everything that's going on throughout the day, and making sure that reporters and photographers are headed out to whatever might be happening.
Boy, there's a lot to unpack there. So I'm glad that we talked about that. So let's start with, you said the morning meeting, and something that stood out to me is you said the reporters are pitching stories. And the irony there is that PR people are pitching those reporter stories, then those reporters are pitching the stories to their editors. And so a lot of times that's one thing I think that makes you and other colleagues here at Axia really good, is they've gotten that experience of having to pitch editors or pitch assignment desks. So we know what those reporters need to be equipped with and what they need to be able to make a good pitch. So we're pitching them to basically to empower them and equip them and persuade them to pitch their supervisors on a story.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important that the reporters bring in a strong story angle. So it helps when the PR professional pitches something very specific, something that the rest of the newsroom won't know about. So if they just send an email to the entire newsroom and everybody pitches it, chances are it's probably not going to get picked up on by one reporter. They're going to send maybe a photographer to get some video if it's an event. It won't get as much airtime as it will if you really focus on one reporter and pitch them a strong story, something that they can take to the assignment desk and say, I really believe that this is something we should cover today.
For sure, that's very good. And again, a lot of things you shared there that I want us to dive into. So let's start with, I'm sure it looks bad for a reporter to come to this morning pitch meeting empty-handed. So
yes.
Should you always have, how many stories should someone bring to that pitch meeting?
Well, ideally, I'd say 3 to 5 story ideas, okay. Stuff that's turnable that day that you can go out and actually do. And it can be, there are days where it's a very slow news day. And so that's when it's good to have some of those evergreen stories that if you're pitching something that can be done at any time, a PR professional, if you're pitching something that's not necessarily has to be done today, but it's something the reporter can keep in their back pocket, that's always a good thing for them to have for that slow news day.
3 to 5 stories. See, I thought you just had to have, one, but I'm with you, because if they come up with an idea and it gets killed, then they've got to, not just justify what they're going to do for the day, but have something else. And, I've been in situations where I pitched a reporter, they've gone to this pitch meeting, pitched the story I recommended, and the assignment editor said, yeah, that sounds good. Why doesn't this person do that and you do something else? And then it's like, oh, I got to brief somebody else on a story. But at the end of the day, the story was good enough to get picked up, and I think that's what's important.
Yes, exactly. That is.
And let's talk about how do you make a story visual because when you're pitching TV newsroom, and even print and online now are very focused on visual. So actually, what are some of the secrets of the trade to turn a story into visual that might not immediately sound visual? And then I'll have a follow-up question for you.
I think it's, are you speaking from the side of the TV news side, or from if you are someone pitching the TV reporter?
I think at the end of the day, talk about the importance of visuals first.
Well, if it's going to be on TV, it needs to have some strong visuals. Nobody wants wallpaper video of, a courtroom. If it's a courtroom story, you don't want something just a bunch of people sitting inside and pictures of a judge. You want to show what that crime or whatever they're talking about in that courtroom. You want video of that, of what happened outside of the courtroom. So the visuals are very important. And anytime a PR firm can share anything from their client, any sort of pictures, video, that's just an extra thing that will ensure that gets on TV, that story gets on TV.
Okay, perfect. And so when you're thinking, tell PR marketing professionals, how do you develop the habit or the talent for thinking visually?
Well, I think it starts with finding one focus, one strong pitch idea, one topic, and thinking it through that way. Telling a story. You want to tell a story through your pitch, through somebody's eyes. It might be a person that you're pitching instead of just a big company. You find that one person that's got a really great story to tell, and then you visualize, how can we tell it through that person's eyes? What can we show that person doing on a day-to-day basis that makes them the right person for the story, or the right story?
Okay. And speaking of like a spokesperson or someone you're going to interview, what traits does a good interviewee have as far as how they present themselves visually?
I would say the traits they have. So the person needs to be presentable. Of course, they need to be able to speak in sound bites if possible. So keep things brief but to the point, and have something compelling to say. Show emotion. That's really important, that we can show the human side of any story, why people should care, that kind of a thing.
And what about hand movements and gestures and things like that? Is that bad? Is that good? What's your preference there?
I think talking with your hands, it makes me feel like I can get the point across more when I do use my hands. So I think that's okay. Something I'm reminding myself right now, I have a chair that moves. If you're sitting being interviewed, you don't want to, you're nervous, you don't want to be doing this. And I saw that a lot when I worked in TV news, and it just was so distracting. So there are little things like that. And the reporter will usually tell you, make sure you do these 3 things in order to make the picture look good, the video look good.
I can't resist but mention during the pandemic, one of our clients was on a panel of 4 CEOs, and our client was the only CEO who wasn't in a swivel chair during the interview. Our client was the only CEO who was wearing a shirt and tie, and there was one tech CEO was wearing a t-shirt, and, he looked the best, he sounded the best. He was in the best setup, and I just, literally was, patting ourselves on the back because he looked so much better than everybody else, and looked like a guy you want to do business with because he was buttoned up, he was polished, and he just did a great job. So, yeah, I love that, Ashley. So you mentioned pitching a reporter, you mentioned the assignment desk. Who do you really want to end up pitching at the end of the day to make sure your story gets covered?
I think if you can develop relationships with certain reporters, that's going to make the difference in the long term of getting your stories picked up. And the way to establish a relationship with a reporter, and you can do this if it's a newspaper reporter, a TV reporter, think about your client. If your client is a restaurant group, let's find a reporter, maybe a lifestyle reporter for the local newspaper, or a consumer reporter on TV, and start following them on social media, start engaging with them, comment on their stories that are online. If they post something on Facebook, a story there, comment on why you like that story, and start building that relationship so that when you call them up down the road and you have something you really want them to cover, they are more willing. They're going to remember you, they're going to trust you, and they're more likely to put your story on the news that day.
Ashley, I love that. And that's one thing I actually tell our clients about, and our potential clients quite a bit, is when something comes across their desk that has our name on it, Axia, I like to think, and reporters and newsrooms have told us, they always give our stuff a second look because of the relationship and reputation we've built with them, is always bringing them good stories. And so we might have a story that they're on the fence about, but because of our relationship, they might go ahead and do it because they want to stay in a good relationship with us, because if all things are neutral, they know that we're going to bring a credible source, we're going to lend them, we're going to be helpful to them. Is that true, or am I just drinking my own Kool-Aid, Ashley?
Yeah, I think it's very important to have a strong relationship and know that you can trust that person. If you call them, it could be, a lot of times I remember working with you in Jacksonville when I was a reporter there. It would be 7 o'clock at night. I'd be working the night side shift, and I'd need an expert to discuss a certain topic. And I knew that I could call you no matter what time of day it was. You would make yourself available or someone available, and that I could trust that you would have that flexibility with me. I think that's important. I think it's important to always honor what you say, be honest with the reporter. Because you don't want to burn any bridges, because chances are you guys will come in contact sometime down the road.
Yeah, that's good. And now we work together. So that kind of speaks to having those relationships, and you never know where they're going to land at the end of the day. Ashley, with that, let's take a quick break. We'll come back on the other side with more with Ashley Billings, talking about media relations, getting earned media coverage in newsrooms, including television and beyond.
You're listening to On Top of PR with your host, Jason Mudd. Jason is a trusted advisor to some of America's most admired and fastest growing brands. He is the managing partner at Axia Public Relations, a PR agency that guides news, social, and web strategies for national companies. And now, back to the show.
Hello, and welcome back to On Top of PR. I'm your host, Jason Mudd with Axia Public Relations. And speaking of Axia Public Relations, we're joined today by Ashley Billings. Ashley, welcome back.
Thank you.
Ashley is a news strategist with Axia, and she is fabulous, and she's been working with us since June of 2018. She's based in Orlando, takes care of our clients that are there, and helps them get their story told on the news, and that's what we're exploring today. So, Ashley, you mentioned earlier there's like a generic email address that you can send. It's usually news ad and then the domain of that news organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you and I have lamented and talked about this, but I hate those email addresses. and because I know I would hate it if I was a recipient of those. And what most people may not realize, maybe they do, is that those emails go to every single person in the newsroom. So if there's 20 reporters, 40 reporters, 5 reporters, 10 reporters, every reporter gets it unless they've managed a way to opt out of it, as do often producers and assignment desk. And so I always say, if you email everybody, you're really emailing nobody, because as you said earlier, which I thought was a great tip, you want to actually give that reporter something unique that no one else has, so they can stand out and so that their topic gets covered. Did you like getting those emails, Ashley?
No, there were many embarrassing moments in the newsroom when you thought you had a great pitch. You saw the email come through, and a lot of times you didn't even realize it was something that went to the entire newsroom.
Mm-hmm.
So you just thought you got a great pitch that day, and you go in and into your editorial meeting and you discuss it, and then they'd say, hey, somebody in our morning meeting already pitched that. And you realize, oh no, this has already been discussed. This has already been disseminated to everyone. And chances are it usually doesn't get picked up that way. So it's really important to try to just find one reporter that you can pitch to always.
Well, and I know when I've had to call and pitch something, the person said, oh, we'll just send it to news at the name of our, newsplatform.com. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to send it there. And they're like, well, that's what we do. And I'm like, no, I want to send it to you because I talked to you about it. I want you to have access to this. I want you to advocate for it. I want to build a relationship with you. And usually they're like, hey, thanks. That, they understand what I'm trying to say. There's some people who are rule followers like, oh, no, you have to send it there. And I'm like, fine, I'll just take it somewhere else, because I know sending it to that group isn't going to be that helpful anyway in the first place.
Yeah, it's just not an effective way of pitching, and it'll waste your pitch. So.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing I think about TV newsrooms, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's just, things are happening everywhere. And I feel like if they've heard the story and multiple people have seen it, it kind of isn't as fresh. It's a little bit stale. Everybody knows it already. So they just it loses that impact of being news if everyone knows about it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, exactly. It needs to be something unique that only one person is going to bring to that room that day.
One thing I've also noticed is if you give, and I hate to say this, but I think it's true, if you give a TV newsroom too much notice on a news story, it kind of loses the sizzle.
Yeah. I mean, TV news is all about what's happening right now.
Right.
So yeah, they want it to be something immediate. This is not something that was in the past, or we can cover it in the future. They'll put it in their file and say, we'll cover it another day when it's a slower day.
Yeah. I think like I've had situations where I know an event is happening on the 18th, but I don't want to pitch it on the 1st because then they've had 18 days for it to kind of marinate, and they're like, I'm not as excited about it as I was the day you pitched me. And I've only been accused maybe twice by sports reporters who have said, I wish you would have given us more notice. We have other things going on. But otherwise, I feel like if I give too much notice, it just loses its luster.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. And that's why if you do have a relationship with one reporter, then you can talk about it, then send them some information later and kind of work them up until the point when it's actually happening.
So the assignment desk, the assignment editor, they've got some kind of priority list of the topics that they're going to cover for the day. In print journalism, that's often called the daily budget. And, people say, well, why is it called a budget? They're not spending money. But it's a budget of resources. Here are the top stories that we're going to cover today. Here's who's covering them. And then here's who we have available to cover other things. Is it called a budget in a TV newsroom?
It has been, gosh, about 6 years or so since I've worked in a newsroom. So I'm trying, and I don't know how it slipped my mind, but I can't think of what we called it in the newsroom. So I apologize.
Well, it'll come back to you.
I can't remember that.
When it comes back to you, just interrupt us and tell us what it was.
I can't remember that, but yeah.
So
there is something though that every day we look at, and there's always something in
maybe
there.
they just call it the list, but I know when I've pitched an editor, they're like, "Oh yeah, that story is on the list."
Yeah,
And most PR people will be timid and say, "Oh, okay, thank you." But I don't stop there. I say, "Okay, where on the list is it?" You know, and so I ask them, you know, is it number 3, number 5, number 1, number 15? So I can kind of set expectations for myself, our team, and the client. You know, if they tell me, yeah, it's number 15 on the list, well, guess what, client? They're probably not coming, right? They don't have 15 crews to be able to come out and do it. But if they tell me you're number 3, then I'm like, okay, you know, now we've got something to work with. The other question I've learned to ask, though, is if we're number 5 on the list, okay, how long is the list? Because if we're number 5 and the list is 5 or the list is 6, then we know other things can start popping up that are breaking news, and we might lose our chance.
Exactly. And a lot of times they'll say this is going to be a VO for the day, or a VOSOT, which is a video or a video over sound. But what you want is the package. If you are a PR person, you want your story to be a package story, which means the reporter is going to go out and give you a good minute and a half or so to tell your story. And so it does make a difference if how they decide what kind of resources they're going to give to that story that day.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think sometimes companies have this misunderstanding that they're going to be on the 30-minute TV show for 20 minutes, right? And so then they're like, we were only on for 4 minutes, and I'm like, 4 minutes out of a 30-minute, you know, fast-paced TV news show? That's amazing. You know, we should be talking bonuses here, not disappointment, right?
Exactly. No, everything's very brief, and that's because people's attention span is only so long. So you can't put something, it's not a newspaper where they can give a lot more detail. It's pretty brief, and people like that. That's why they watch the local news.
And I want to just circle back to something you said earlier, which is about trust, right? I mean, you're building a relationship. The worst thing PR people or companies can do is puff up or build up a brand or a spokesperson more than they really are, because, you know, one thing people, I guess, don't realize is that reporters and journalists, if they're any good, are also kind of novice researchers. And so if they can find something out in a few minutes that you're hoping they don't find out, or you're telling them something that you hope they don't discover, odds are they're probably going to discover it. You might get away with it for a few times, but the one time you don't can haunt you for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you want to be able to control the message if you're working on the PR side, and that's the beauty of PR, of controlling the message that you want to send. But it doesn't help to hide any information that could come out in the public later, because reporters are a lot of times that's their job. They're supposed to dig for news, dig for information every day. And the more interesting that little tidbit of information is, the more likely they're going to use that in a story.
Let's talk for just a minute about morning shows. You know, pre-pandemic, morning shows were allowing guests to come in studio and do, you know, in-studio interviews, which were great. Those are typically where you see a 4-minute story instead of a 30-second story. And your expert really has a chance to answer questions and dive into the topic a little bit. Since during the pandemic, a lot of those interviews went through Zoom, and they were doing conversations like this, which are great. And apparently I'm told those are here to stay in some element of that, because now a local TV station now has the resource to interview an expert who's located in another country or located in another city or state. And when that expert can provide some expertise that's valuable to the local audience, that's pretty awesome too. But, you know, if you're invited to be a guest in a newsroom, you know, for a morning show or otherwise, what are some tips you might give?
Well, do you mean if they're actually going to go inside the studio and be interviewed, or both on Zoom and in studio?
Let's talk about in studio.
Okay. In studio, well, you want to obviously appear professional looking, or dress the part. If you are a veterinarian, then you can come in your scrubs and dress as the expert. If you're the expert, dress how an expert would dress for that position, for that job that you're discussing. And come in early so that they have time to do their microphone check, make sure that you're comfortable, you're ready, and expect to not know the questions that you're going to be asked, because it's rare that you will ever know which questions are going to come up. It's usually just an anchor having a conversation with you. It's fine to give them some talking points if you'd like, some things that you would feel most comfortable discussing. But just be ready for any question that might come up. And again, keep it brief, keep it simple. Talk for your audience, which is not an expert on the topic that you're discussing. So you need to keep it simple enough that anyone can understand, anyone watching the news, a child or an older person.
You've made some very good points, and I think it all comes down to expectations, right? I've had clients show up with too many people for an interview, right? And where there's a crowd of their people from their company to watch the interview, and that's not what it's not. It's, it's not a spectation or a sport. They want one expert there. They want you early in case they need to bump you up or whatever. I've also had clients say, gosh, they just put me in a room, no one talked to me, and next thing you know, they shuffled me into the studio, they shuffled me out, and it's like, yeah, because they've got other things going on, and they don't have a budget to have somebody there to be, like your PR person or whatever. So we try to, sometimes accompany the client. The other thing I think people misunderstand is they think they're going to go into a special room and there's going to be a hair and makeup artist waiting to touch them up and make them look great and then shoo them into the room. And it's just not like that, right?
No. In TV news, that's a big misconception. The TV people do their own makeup and hair, unless you're big time on network news. But yeah, you need to prepare ahead of time and come presentable. And you can always bring visuals. Ask them if you can bring visuals to show off. I know when we've pitched one of my clients was a pawn store group. And so we did a back to school shopping segment, which you wouldn't normally think about doing at a pawn store, back to school shopping. But we said, hey, here are the things that you can find at a discounted price. And they brought in some visuals, like a musical instrument to show off on the morning show, calculators, that kind of a thing. So that's always helpful too. So it's not just talking heads during the interview.
Yeah, I love that. We once had a client go on a national TV show, and I hate to say this, but he's kind of that stereotypical New Yorker, and he rolled in like 45 minutes late and whatever, and the TV show just said, hey, we bumped you, did this, and wish you the best, and then he called me and he was like, I didn't know if I was going to be late, they weren't going to include me. And I was like, I didn't know you thought being late was going to be an option, and so I had to explain to them that not only is it going to be harder to get him back on that program and other programs, but now I've got to our agency has to overcome that relationship issue as well.
And that's what media relations, what we can do to help our client is prepare them, fully prepare them for what to expect when they do go and do an interview, so that they know what they're walking into and they don't make any bad mistakes that are going to prevent them from getting their company news on TV.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you, we have to wrap up. We've run out of time. This has been a lot of fun. I want to ask you to kind of think of any closing tips you might share. And in the interim, while you're doing that, I'm going to mention that on our website, we've got an ebook about media relations and how to work with the media and how to pitch the media. I'd encourage anybody who's listening or watching this episode, who's enjoyed what we're talking about, who has learned something from this episode, you're going to learn even more by checking out that ebook. And you can find that at axiapr.com/resources. And in the show episode notes, we'll be sure to put a link specifically to that exact ebook so that you can check that out. We also have webinars about media relations and other content. So Ashley, any closing thoughts and recommendations?
Yeah, I think something that can always translate in a pitch is showing the economic value of any pitch. Anytime you can give numbers, hey, this is going to create jobs, this is going to put this X amount of money into the local community, things like that can make your pitch stronger and get the attention of a reporter. That's something that I was always asked when I pitched stories was, what is this going to do why does this matter? Why does this matter to the city, to the community? And that's something that's can bring value to a story.
That's a really good tip. Thank you for bringing that. I'm going to yes and that and say one of the challenges is private corporations don't want to talk about financials and things like that. But I tell them that's what makes a more interesting news story. And so if you're moving into a new office, how many square feet? How long did you sign the lease for? Are you willing to disclose what you're paying per square foot? And maybe that part's not as interesting, but it's just developing the qualitative and quantitative data that helps show the scale and the impact of the news story. And so, oh, you're hiring? Well, how many people are you hiring? What's the average wage? What's the range of wage? What are the level of positions? What are the criteria for the jobs? And just getting more specific. And, another company might say, oh, well, we're growing at a rate of 30% year over year. Okay, well, what does that look like? Are you a $100,000 a year company, or are you $1 billion company? Because that's impactful as well. And I respect that private corporations' financials are private, But if they want to get the level of media coverage that public companies get, then they have to be willing to be flexible and share some credible information to help share what their company is. But as we talked about earlier, right, they have to do it honestly. They can't exaggerate those numbers. A true story, as I had a CEO interviewing with a national business magazine, and he inflated the number of employees they had by like 2x. Yeah. Then he went on a vacation, and the reporter called the human resource department to confirm the number of employees because it had been a month since that interview happened. And the reporter rightfully kind of gathered that there were probably even more employees at the rate the company was growing. And the HRO person, chief human resources officer, was like, we don't have that many employees. And guess what? That story never ran. Yep. And we had to do so much work to rehabilitate that relationship, whatever. And so to your point earlier, it's about relationships. It's about trust and credibility.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Ashley, this has been a lot of fun. Our time flew by. I thank you for being here. And if our audience wants to connect with you, I'm assuming LinkedIn is a great way to do that. And yeah. And if they ask nicely, we'll give them your email address. Does that sound good?
Thank you. That sounds great. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today about this topic.
Ashley, it's been a pleasure to work with you all these years, both on the TV side of things and now at the Axios side of things. And I look forward to us working together for a long time.
Me too. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Be well.
Thanks.
Well, that's been another episode of On Top of PR. I love the energy and exchange that Ashley and I had today to share with you our passion, enthusiasm, and experience working with newsrooms. Ashley's background is very focused in television, and I think in today's world that's even more relevant because print and online and radio are all thinking, either visually or how do you use sound to create a visual in someone's mindset. And so there's really no longer this division between traditional TV and print, because print's trying to do more TV, TV's doing more web. And so at the end of the day, these are really good lessons learned that you can take back to your team and learn how to pitch the media better and build stronger relationships with the news media. If you found value in this conversation, I hope you'll share it with one of your colleagues and turn them on, and they'll thank you for helping them stay on top of PR. And with that, I'm your host, Jason Mudd, signing off. Thank you for watching today.
This has been On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by ReviewMaxer. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and check out past shows at ontopofpr.com.